Sometimes the life that looks like a dream on the outside can feel like a storm on the inside. Cooper Chapman was a top 100 professional surfer, traveling the world, chasing waves, literally living the highlight reel. But beneath the surface, his self-worth rose and fell with every result, every sponsorship, every sticker on his board. And when his love for surfing and the sponsorship sort of changed, that also impacted his identity. Out of that loss and grief, though, came something extraordinary. Cooper Chapman founded the Good Human Factory, a movement that's now reached over tens of thousands of people across Australia with simple and powerful tools for mental health. And now he has his debut book, The 1% Good Club, which shows how just 14 minutes a day can completely shift your life. In today's episode, we talk about the pressure of chasing dreams, the shame and loss that comes when they don't pan out, and the surprising ways that grief can become the catalyst for purpose. This is a conversation about identity and resilience and why small practices can make the biggest differences. Hi, I'm Danielle, and I'm so glad that you're here because together we're going to work through big stuff. Hey, Cooper, and welcome to Big Stuff.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I've been having a look at your new book, the things that you've got going on, your podcast. You are a Chapman guy. You got a lot going on in a lot of different areas. So how are you feeling right now as you're heading into this launch of your new book?
I'm feeling good. We just took a few nice breaths together to settle into this moment for this podcast. But yeah, the book I'm excited for. Obviously, first time author. I'm only 31 years old, and it was it kind of came around really quickly. I only got offered a book deal, and then it sort of all happened within like 6 to 12 months. So feeling a little bit nervous, if anything, that people are going to get to see my story and read about me and learn about, I guess, my journey. But I'm also very excited. Hopefully, the book is going to offer people some really simple things that are going to help them with their mental health. And I feel like it's a good balance of sort of storytelling, science, experts that I've interviewed on my podcast, and yeah, a nice sort of short read for people to sort of step into the world of self-development and understand some great things for their mental health. So a little bit nervous, very excited, and yeah, we'll see how it goes once it launches.
Wonderful. Well, the writing process and the launching it out into the world is just one part, obviously. And then there's the getting out there and sharing the book. That's, it's a whole different energy and can really lead to, this expectations and this pressure. And, it might be a great opportunity for you to eat some of your own cooking.
Literally. Yeah. I mean, one of the big core themes in my book and in my life is appreciation, not expectation. So my, for me, like the goal or the bar's set pretty low. I'm like, if it helps one person, then it was worth all the time and energy I put into it. But I already know I've had, a handful of people, or probably 20 or 30 that have read it now, a month before it's even come out, and everyone's had really positive feedback and said it was really helpful and they found it quite interesting. So yeah, it's an interesting
You've already hit
time.
your bar. You've already hit your bar.
Yeah,
Anything from there is us, baby. It's all us.
exactly. I mean, maybe my publisher won't be happy if only 20 people read it, but yeah, pre-sales have been going really strong, and I got a lot of really cool media stuff coming up. It's great to be on your podcast, sharing with your audience a little more about the book and my journey. But no, it's very exciting. It's an interesting thing writing a book. I never thought I'd be an author, and here I am, being an author. So we'll see. Yeah, see how it goes once it comes out.
Well, you've had a few evolutions. You weren't born an author. You most recently-ish, I suppose, you've been working on mental health, self-development. You've built your platform. You've got, a philosophy. We're going to dive into that a little bit later. Tell me a little bit about the previous evolutions of you, because you're a young guy to have found his way to self-development. I know I had zero thoughts of self-development really when I was in my late 20s. I was very much in the what does the world want from me? How do I fit in or fit the mold? How do I work it all out? And it sort of came to me much later, the self-development world. And the massive human flaw here is that we usually come to this stuff after we go through some big stuff.
Mm.
We usually have to hit a really nasty space in our lives for us to begin to look a little bit deeper. Did that happen for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess our hardest moments are relative to our own lives, but a bit of my backstory, I was a professional surfer, so I grew up on Sydney's northern beaches and found a bit of talent in surfing from a pretty young age and was kind of ranked in the top 3 Aussie surfers from sort of the age of 11, sort of in my age groups up until 21. I was sort of always in that top 3, which was amazing. And then after finishing school, I was straight on the international tour and spent 10 years traveling the world as a professional surfer. Never quite made it to the top 30 in the world, but I was always ranked sort of between 40 to 100 in the world. So had a pretty awesome career, but I guess the self-development stuff came in for me after what was pretty challenging time in my life. At about 22, 23, I'd had my best ever year on the tour. I think I was ranked about 43rd in the world at that stage. And I got dropped by my major sponsor. So in surfing, you get sponsorships, and that sponsorship money is basically how you fund your career. And I was sponsored by a pretty big brand, making about $50,000 a year. Had my best year ever, and I was like, sweet, prime age, 22. I'm trending forward. Every year I'd done better. And then they said, sorry, we don't think you're going to make it. And at the time, my manager was like, oh, we'll find you another sponsor. It's all good. And then it kind of time went by. The industry was kind of struggling and I couldn't find any support. So my mindset just went into major victim mindset, 22 years old, had sort of quite a lot of probably ego behind me at that stage up through that late teen years. I sort of used it as a protection mechanism. And, so much of my self-worth was on external validation, what everyone else thought of me. When I was doing well in my comps, I felt amazing. Everyone would pat you on the back. And when I was doing poorly, I felt pretty average. And after losing that sponsor, I set myself on a bit of a downward spiral because I went from, making this money to support my career to making nothing. And I had to go and get a full-time job, which, not complaining about that at all. But at the time I went from, I can just go surfing all day till after work. So I went on this bit of a spiraling downward mindset and was, pretty victimized and just felt like the world was against me. And then I was lucky enough to be selected to go to the first ever Olympics training camp for surfing. And they took sort of the top 10 Aussie male surfers, top 10 women. And it was just like an introduction camp to understand the Olympics, what the next 4-year qualification process was going to look like. So when I got invited there, I kind of went, okay, maybe I am worthy. Maybe I am still worth chasing this. And it was really cool. At that camp, we had a few incredible speakers. We had Kathy Freeman speak to us, another Olympic gold medalist, Kenny Wallace, and then also Ben Crow, who's an incredible mindset and mindset coach. And then also Surfing Australia's head psychologist named Jason Patchell. And during the camp, they kind of encouraged us to understand who we are outside of surfing. They said, like, pro surfing's what you do, but it's not who you are. And it set me on this journey trying to understand who I was. It was the first time that I'd really started to think, like, maybe I don't have to base my self-worth and identity on my career and achievements because, there's going to be one day I'm not the top surfer in my local area. There's going to be a day that I have to retire and do something else. And that was when I got challenged by my psychologist. He said, try and base your self-worth and your identity on your personal values and how well you can live to those values. So that set me on this trajectory sort of through my 20s to understand who I was as a person more. I read lots of books, watched lots of documentaries, listened to so many podcasts, and really looked for values in people who I was inspired by and looked up to. And I was like, how can I pull them into my lives? And the 5 that I sort of landed on, and I guess we'll talk about launching my organization, The Good Human Factory. Before I'd even thought about launching it, the 5 that I'd really tried to live by was responsibility, which for me is about, not being the victim and going, you know what, I've got to do something if I want to see change. The second was gratitude. My dad always drilled into me, gratitude is so important. So every day, just trying to look for the good things rather than the negative things. We all have both going on. Gratitude's just focusing on the good stuff a bit more often. The third's empathy, learning how to listen and connect with people and, be interested, not interesting. The fourth one was mindfulness. I feel like we're all becoming far, far less present. So having a mindfulness practice and being able to, be present was important. And then the last one was kindness, being kind to myself, being kind to others, and being kind to the environment were all super important qualities to me. So that was kind of the turning point for me once I sort of had that rock bottom moment of, losing my sponsors, having to get a full-time job working on a tradie site to then be able to afford to go to the next event. That was that moment where I started to go, I'm the only person who has to live up here in my head. Why not make it a positive place? So I started to try and work on that self-development just to, deal with what was going on up here because I'd had some family history of mental illness. I lost an uncle to suicide. My dad struggled. So I was quite aware that it could be hereditary, the men in my family. So I was always really, open and aware, open-minded from about that 20, 21 years old to like, what can I do to sort of mitigate the potential challenges I might face?
Yeah. I mean, incredibly powerful stuff. And it's almost like along the way, there were little inklings or little moments where your next step kind of was presented to you, you know. You mentioned Ben Crow, Mojo Crow. If people don't know him, he's one of the greatest in Australia, I think, in that space of what would you say he is? It's not just it is self development. How would you describe him?
It's kind of like mindset, personal development, and trying to just understand who you are outside of being an athlete or a CEO. It's like, what sort of
Mm.
person are you? And that I mean, it,
Yeah,
it
it's
was
not
a
so much
long,
about performance. It's not like high performance, is it? It's like best human practices
and
or best
and
human.
then from that, good performances generally come when you can get out of your own way and you
Yeah.
can, not. It's a weird fine line to walk of like not caring too much, but then you kind of lose the competitiveness. And that was probably something at the end of my career once I really lent into these values, my competitiveness. I was like, I don't really care if I win or lose. Like I'm, pretty happy with my life. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword when you're
That's
a
a
top
huge
level athlete.
shift. Yeah, right. But that's a huge shift. So became when you were really good at something so young, and then everybody told you how great you were at it, and then your whole life started to revolve around it. Did that always just feel like, woohoo, I get to surf every day? Or was there a sense of internal pressure of always needing to be better, a sense of that high competition? I mean, you said that when you performed well, you felt really good. And if you performed badly, you felt bad. But was there this like big internal drive that was constantly on that roller coaster and space of not just self judgment, but you are externally getting judged as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think just a lot of young athletes get stuck in that mind. I think just a lot of people in general get stuck in that mindset of really caring what other people think. And I guess I needed to because it's like, what do my sponsors think? Am I doing the right thing to keep them happy? But yeah, it is a weird time, just being a young teenage boy who kind of, was representing the country from 14 years old, was getting paid to surf when I was in high school. I think growing up, there was obviously pressure from sponsors and mostly internal pressure, when you're sort of in that top level in the Australia scene, sort of big fish in a small pond. You kind of have these expectations and you kind of have, your sponsors, Surfing Australia, parents, friends going like, oh, wow, you're like growing. And I definitely did, to be honest. Through that junior career, I was quite successful, and then I hit the international tour, and I really each year was doing quite good and kind of stepping stone trajectory forward. So it came with that external validation, and it would, felt good. But then, there was obviously moments through those times where I'd have a string of bad results and would go into a bit of a dark pit and try and get myself out of it. So yeah, as much as there was external pressure, it was kind of as much internal as external, just because I guess, I wanted to be the best in the world and wanted to chase my dream and wanted to travel the world and go surfing and, put my skills against the best in the world, which I was lucky enough to get to go and do for a long time through my 20s.
Yeah. And it is a double-edged sword, as you say. It's a wonderful blessing, an incredible achievement, and a dream, an absolute dream come true to have these opportunities. But then there is so much pressure on like a developing person, developing mind. Do you recall a point? I mean, your sponsorship kind of was taken away without you expecting it. The feeling of something that you've been working for finishing quite suddenly comes with like extra layers of stuff. It's not like, well, I've just lost my sponsorship, therefore I need to find a new one. Did you have layers of grief, layers of self doubt, layers of like, what else comes with that?
think one of the main things is almost embarrassment, to be honest. As a surfer, when you're sponsored, you put stickers on your surfboard. And I'd had stickers on my surfboard since I was, 10 years old. I got sponsored by Rip Curl. I was with them for like 7 years and then moved on to the next brand, which was Hurley. And then when they said, look, we don't have a contract for you anymore, just peeling the stickers off the nose of your surfboard and having to go to your local beach where everyone's so used to, being this guy that's doing really well and sponsored and looked after. And then, to be honest, probably people wouldn't have even thought that. But in my mind, it's almost like, walking down the beach naked, like, oh, look, everyone's going to realize like they don't think I'm going to be good enough. Maybe everyone's going to think like that. So a bit of embarrassment, bit of shame, bit of, yeah, frustration. But yeah, probably just those ones, just sort of internally just being like a bit like embarrassed, like, oh, and as well as like I lost a sponsor, I still didn't quit or retire from surfing. I still traveled the world for 6 or 7 years after that, working a full-time job, saving money, spending that money to go to the next event. Because there's probably like 6 months of the year of travel and 6 months where you're at home. So instead of training at home for 6 months,
It's hugely expensive. It's a hugely expensive thing, even with
oh
sponsorship,
yeah,
earning $50,000 a year. I mean, you can eat that up in travel
I
really
I
quickly,
was
right? It's not
I was
like,
living at home with my parents, and I didn't end the year with any money, let me say that. When you're going
yeah,
on
yeah,
12, or maybe not 12, but like 7, 8 overseas trips a year to like 10, 15 countries, yeah, it adds up. So, I
yeah,
definitely didn't end up
absolutely.
saving any money. So then, like, losing all that, I had to, like, budget even harder. I had to work, 50 hours a week on a work site to be able to afford to get to the next event. But yeah, I still loved it.
Excellent motivation. I mean, amazing motivation, excellent work ethic. Talk to me about the point though where you're starting to realize that it's not for you anymore. Was that a hard thing or was that like, actually, I'm out. It's easy.
It was pretty hard. It was a bit of a slow burn. I'd already started my organization, The Good Human Factory, towards the end of my career. I sort of always had this niggling that, surfing's not gonna be forever. I wasn't the, world champion. I was pretty realist. Like, I was never gonna be a world champ. I might have had a good year and cracked into the top 32, which was my dream. Never quite eventuated. But I was always aware that maybe there needs to be something else. So I started my mental health organization in 2019 and I still competed till 2021. So one of the hardest things to let go was the identity of when I first started my organization, I was going into schools, talking to kids, and I felt like it was really cool that I'm a current pro surfer and doing this. It was like almost a badge of honor that I could juggle working full time pro surfer and this business that I was building. But then 2020 happened, and then obviously, COVID, I couldn't travel and compete. So it allowed me to build my business a little bit more. 2021 came around, I started to do more workshops with students, corporate groups. I was getting all this incredible feedback that, hey, you've really helped me. And like I said with my book, my bar was set pretty low. If I can help one student think about stuff a little bit differently and it makes their life a little bit better, I'd done my job. And in those first few years, I'd spoken to a couple thousand students and I was getting this, once again, external validation, but for the reasons of not that I'm a good surfer, but because I was offering something to someone that's going to really help them with their life. So it was a different form of it was a different form of external validation that I was receiving. So it came around 2021. I made the international tour again. So I shipped off and did 4 months overseas and had to put my business on hold for 4 months, which was a big challenge because, when you've sort of built momentum, you're the only person working on your business. You build 2 years, 3 years of momentum and then have to just pull the handbrake for 4 months to go overseas and travels, which was my last my last shot at, making it onto this world tour. And it was great. That last trip around the world in 2021, I traveled with like three of my best mates that I've done like my whole career with. It was like a big reunion tour sort of thing. One of them made the world tour again, which was great. He's killing it right now. Another one did make it. He's got a kid now and living like his epic life, free surfing. And my business was sort of getting pretty busy. So then when I got home from that trip, I was like, you know what? I'm feeling far more fulfillment from my business and the work that I'm doing now. It's making me at that stage, not more money, but I mean, not that surfing was making me anything, to be honest, except for enough prize money that just sort of get around the world. So I was just sort of, when I came home from that international trip in 2021, I was like, you know what? It's probably time to lean more into this Good Human Factory thing full time. And yeah, I haven't looked back since. And it's been an epic couple of years with lots of impact, lots of cool different collaborations, lots of really fun stuff that I've been up to.
Yeah, yeah, you've got lots of cool stuff going on. Let's talk about that impetus, that catalyzing moment where you decided to start the Good Human Factory. How did that actually come about?
Yeah, so this has been a great interview to sort of set it up. So obviously I'd been on that self-development journey myself through my 20s out of my own fear for mental illness from my family history. So I'd just come home from a big international trip overseas. I actually went to America and got to take my dad with me, which is really cool. We surfed like Kelly Slater's wave pool, competed in an event. And I got home and I've got three sisters, and my youngest of three sisters, um, was in year 12 at high school, and she looked really upset this one night at the dinner table, and I was like, "What's going on, Sophia?" And she didn't wanna say anything, and I was like, "Are you alright?" And she let us know that one of the boys in her year had taken his own life the day before. And, that was the first time that I'd really heard about youth suicide or youth mental health challenges, and I was just like, to be honest, I was just like, "This sucks." And I looked up some of the stats and went like, "Wow, this is a really big issue." And I asked myself 2 questions that night. I was like, 1, like, "What can we do about this?" And number 2, I was like, "Can I do anything about this?" So I gave my old school teacher friend of mine a call and just said like, "Hey man, did you hear about like the suicide at the school around the corner?" He's like, "Yeah, it's so tragic." And I was like, "Can we catch up for a beer? I've got this idea to maybe run some workshops at school." So we caught up the next day, and the reason behind the idea was earlier in that year, I'd been working at Manly Surf School and ran some sort of development surf camps for junior high performance surfing. And during this weekend camp, one of the techniques or one of the things that we did was a mindfulness breath work and visualization practice, something that I'd started to get into. And after the camp, a lot of the parents were saying to me and my dad, because he was friends with a lot of the kids' parents, "Oh, the kids really love the mindfulness and the visualization." So my dad was the one who actually said to me, like, "Why don't you try and go and speak to some students at the school? Maybe one of them will, make their life a little bit better because of what you taught them. Like, I know you've worked on your mental health a lot." Yeah,
Yours?
so I went and spoke to an old school teacher friend of mine who still worked at the school that I went to, Narrabeen Sports High, and we just had a nice chat, and I said, like, I'd love to come and maybe do some talks at the school and speak to a few of the students, maybe some of the surfers, and just see, for one, if like I'm any good at it, and for two, if they find any value in it. So that was in about October 2018, actually. And he's like, "Go to Hawaii for your surf comps." I was about to leave the next week. "Come back next year, first term. I'll find you a class and you can come and do a workshop for them." Which was really cool. Shout out to Ian Wood, great guy who, yeah, gave me that first opportunity. And he was also a careers advisor teacher. So he was very entrepreneurial, and I had no idea. But he kind of said to me, like, public speaking is also a pretty lucrative thing if you can be good at it. And I never really second thought too much about it. And then I came back the next year. I ran a workshop at the school. It's funny. I look back at the first workshops that I did, and it was like, I would have failed like a year 6 assignment, how bad the PowerPoint was. But it was more about the
We all look
message.
back at our first ones. We all look back at the first ones and we're like, oh my God, I know so much more now. And that was really cringy. But when you ask those first people, they're like, no, it was excellent. And we got a lot out of it. So the judgment is all one way.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was where it started. But then, yeah, that was 2019. I think I did 2 because, as I said, I was working 50 hours a week. I was traveling, surfing, and I was trying to build this thing, and didn't realize how hard it was to, get schools and build credibility. And, I would have done plenty of things differently with what I know now. But that happened through 2019. I did 2 workshops, and then 2020 came around and COVID happened. So that's when I really focused on my education. I launched my podcast and I started interviewing experts in well-being and trying to really understand different techniques even better. I did a few short courses on like the science of well-being, my mental health first aid, and started to just get a better understanding of kind of holistic mental health. My goal is to have no barrier to entry for people. It's like, what are the scientifically proven healthy habits that most of us aren't doing that we can do, and how can we build like a bit of a accountability around it? So that's where my workshop sort of initiated, and it's just sort of snowboard, like I sort of touched on before. 2020 everything slowed down again, and then since 2022 it's really taken off. And there's so many different elements to my business. I have obviously the podcast, which is about to hit 1 million downloads, which is really cool. We've got the workshops, which is a big part of what I do at high schools, but also corporates. So I had so much imposter syndrome of like, hey, I'm not a psychologist. But then I began to realize that people found it really relatable and digestible, and they could actually get takeaways from what I was talking about. So yeah, that's been my last few years. And then we do like merchandise. I have a big community of people who practice 1% of their day for their mental health. So yeah, lots of cool different things. I'm sure I can tell you a bit more about the 1% Good Club and a bit more about the book as well.
Yeah, for sure. You said something really interesting, which is this holistic well-being, and it is it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be laborious, and it doesn't have to be
complicated. There really are, what I find, and tell me if you agree, a lot of people are looking for a silver bullet. Like, tell me the one thing that is going to make my life feel like so much better. It's going to take away my burnout. It's going to take away my imposter syndrome, and I will be happy. That's all I want. I just want to be happy. And realistically, it's a whole load of small things done often
Yeah.
and being mindful about it. And it does start with, firstly, I think the reflection and the awareness piece plus some gratitude.
Absolutely. I mean, if you could, go online and look up all the benefits of gratitude, benefits of meditation, breath work. If you could put them all into a pill and sell them, every single person on the planet would take it. But
I'll buy the pill.
I'll buy the pill, but if it takes you 5 or 10 minutes of your time, it's like, So the main barrier for people is just that accountability and responsibility. And that's why that first value that's super important to me and should be the most important for everyone is, you know what, I have to take some responsibility for this stuff. And there is so much great information out there that has no barrier to entry of cost, but it takes a little bit of your time, a little bit of effort. And that's usually the thing that people struggle with.
When you were first starting out, what did you struggle with?
I mean, the consistency was a big one for me for sure. Like I was going and talking about gratitude, talking about mindfulness, and I knew I wasn't doing it. I was doing it regularly, but not every day. And that was really a big catalyst for me to start the 1% Good Club. So in 2021, I'd been delivering these workshops for about 2 years, was doing all these practices regularly, but not every day. And then I was doing a meditation one day and I was just in my head thinking like, surely we can all agree we can give 1% of our day to our mental health. And I was in the meditation and I remember it so clearly. I couldn't get it out of my head. So I literally stopped in the middle of the meditation and sat up. I just couldn't slow my mind down like most of us when we meditate. And it doesn't happen often that I'll stop in the middle, but I was like, I got to work out what is 1% of 24 hours. So I did the math and it turns out there's 1,440 minutes in a day. 14.4 minutes is 1% of a day. 14.4 minutes is 14 minutes and 24 seconds. So I was like, surely we should be able to give 14 minutes a day to our mental health, less than 1% of your day. And I was like, you're 95% more likely to maintain a healthy habit if you have an accountability group. So I was like, what can we do for 14 minutes a day that's good for our mental health? And I was like, meditation's such a great thing to start your day, to, quiet your mind, to give you a bit of calm so you can respond to things rather than react to things for your day. And then the other thing that I feel is super important is to have a gratitude practice, to stop each day, to look for the things that went well during your day. It's not to say that you don't have bad things going on as well, but it's just about stopping for a few moments and looking at the good. And when we do that, it releases chemicals in our brain and body that make us feel good. So going off that theory, I was like, well, I use Instagram every day. Why not use it as a positive tool? So I put out an Instagram story saying, I'm going to create a group chat on Instagram. I'm going to call it the 1% Good Club, 1% of your day doing something good for your mental health. And every morning, I'll send a link to a meditation that you can try that goes for 10 minutes. And every single night, I'll write 3 things I'm grateful for. And then everybody can write 3 things they're grateful for in the group chat. So you stay accountable. It started with like 30 people on the first day. So for almost 4 years now, over 4 years now, I've practiced meditation, gratitude every day. I've had a community of people who do it with me. And that was really what sparked the catalyst of my book, which is also called the 1% Good Club. And the question that you asked was, how have you found, how have you made this work? That was a big one for me. Having that accountability group and community to be a part of was a big one. And then just setting the goal really low of, I've got to have a bare minimum of 1%. So it's a bit of meditation, bit of gratitude, spend some time in nature, exercise, all these little things that we all know. It's like, all right, how do I stay consistent?
Did you start being good at meditation? Because this is, I think, one of those things that people are often like, oh, I'm not good at it. My brain is too busy, or I can't do it. I'm not good. There's this expectation around what meditation should look like. And I mean, you just said then you've been doing it really consistently, and every now and then, like, the brain still wants to do what the brain does because that's what the brain does, right? How did you grow the habit even when the brain is busy?
I mean, the first thing is like, there's no such thing as a good and a bad meditator. There's just someone who meditates and somebody who doesn't. My meditation coach, his name's Chris Soul, incredible guy, owns an organization with his partner, Rochelle Fox, called Mindspo. And I've run a retreat with them in Bali before, and they taught me about meditation. And what he says is just so beautiful. First and foremost, he says, like, the most valuable thing you can ever have in life is peace of mind. Like, you can have all the money in the world, but if up here is terrible, then, you know, you're in hell. Like, if you're in hell in your head, but you're in heaven on the outside, you're in hell. So that was kind of the theory that I always had. Like, there's not a good and a bad meditator. But he always says to me, he's like, I meditate every day. I've been doing it for 11 years. It usually takes me between sort of 5 to 10, sometimes 15 minutes to get it to be somewhat quiet. And I'm like, if this guy's a pro meditator and he's taking that long, then of course I can give myself a bit of leeway if I can't quiet my mind down. And generally, if you can't quiet your mind down, it's a pretty good sign that you need to take a bit of time to let it settle. And the way that he describes it really well is like, trying to let your mind settle is funny. As humans, we want to like do something to make something happen. And he says, imagine your mind and all the thoughts are like a big barrel of water. And the goal is to get the barrel to stop. That means there's no thoughts. But every time there's shutters on the water, it's a thought. And as humans, we try and touch the water to get it to stop, or we will hold the bucket. And he says, you just got to let it go. And eventually it'll slow down. So it's just about trying to, you know, sit with your thoughts, try your best each time one comes to let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go enough times. And then you start to get that stillness. And a lot of people just can't persevere through it. And that's why it's like, set a timer, do for as long as that. Don't listen to my advice of stopping in the middle. It doesn't happen very often, but every now and then, if there is something that you need to get up for, get up. But yeah, like we said, there's no such thing as a good and a bad meditator. There's just someone who does it and somebody who doesn't. And like, the best time to learn to meditate was 20 years ago. The next best time is today.
Second best time. Yeah,
it's a good one with a tree. Best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time's today.
Love that. Sometimes though, it takes for us to have these quiet moments for the new idea or the new thing to drop. I think a very popular term is download. But, you know, we can just, it's having an idea. If you think the download idea, you know, the cosmic download is a load of wank, that's fine. However, sometimes we just need a little bit of a quiet mind for the new idea to drop. Do you think that's what happened for you with the 1% idea?
Literally, that's what I was just about to say. And I've never really thought about it like that. I was in this meditation, and from there, I've created a community that's now been around for 1,600 days. There's been over 1 million gratitudes sent in by people. So just knowing the science of gratitude, the impact that would have had on people's lives and then ripple into other people's lives, like, is profound. And then from that, now my book's called The 1% Good Club. So from this one little download in this meditation 4.5 years ago, I've now impacted, you know, 1 million moments of gratitude. I've had hundreds of thousands of hours of people doing meditation because of this community. And now I've got a book that's been, you know, published with a great publisher, Wiley Publishing. So, you know, this small download has turned into this mega thing, and it came from doing a meditation one day.
Yeah, beautiful. You mentioned a moment ago that gratitudes release hormones and chemicals. Sometimes people think that gratitude is like a bit of lip service. I'm so grateful, you know. But as you were saying, it really does. When you allow yourself to hook into the thing, like to actually imagine the thing that you're grateful for and how it makes you feel, it does release those hormones in your brain. Usually we're talking like dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin, which gives us like the feel good, like a shot of feels, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That changes over time. It changes our perspective. And the research on that is awesome with Dr. Martin Seligman, I believe, has done lots of...
It literally changes our brain. It creates neuroplasticity when, you know, we start to create these new pathways in our brain. When we're always looking for the good, we start to see more good. If we're always looking for the bad, you're of course going to see more bad. So it's training your brain at the end of every day. Okay, what were a few good things today? Then the next day, in your day, you're looking for them, and you feel that as a daily habit. And then you start looking around. You know, whenever you're walking around each day, you eat something and you're like, oh, that tasted really good. Or you're outside and you're like, oh, the sun feels nice in my skin. You start to look for the positive things rather than the negative things. And everybody's been in that victim mindset and that, you know, having that bad day. And I get in that stage every now and then as well. But it's just about how can you be on this side of the spectrum more often than you're on the other side. And that's why that dedicated practice and the accountability is so important. And obviously it is this woo-woo, oh, grateful. But if you look at the science and you look at all the data and the studies behind people who have a daily gratitude practice, they all rate far higher in a happiness test. So it's like, do you want to be happier or
apparently, the research, according to Martin Seligman, is like 3 weeks of doing it consistently, and there is a marked change in just that time, which then starts to compound, which I love An analogy that I use with my clients, Cooper, which I really like, and you are very welcome to take it and call it your own, is if you have a dog and you're playing fetch with a stick and you throw the stick into a swamp, the dog goes and gets the stick and brings it back. And you throw it into the swamp like 5 or 6 times, and the dog will go and wait, be like, where's the stick? Send me, like, throw the stick. And the dog is hanging out in the swamp. But gratitude gives us the opportunity to throw the stick into a field of flowers, throw it into a field of flowers, throw it into a field of flowers, and the dog goes and waits in the field of flowers. You're literally changing your perspective to something sunnier, and you start to see the good things without really needing to try as much.
And that's
So
gratitude's this, once again, the lowest barrier to entry. You don't have to go to the gym to get you just have to think about something differently. It's like the simplest thing ever, but a lot of us aren't doing it. So I'm just trying to inspire as many people as possible to have that practice.
A lot of us aren't getting the sleep we need or drinking enough water, really simple stuff. As you say, we're looking for that supplement, the pill that makes us feel better. But it's these really small things that the human organism thrives on, firstly, right?
Yeah, we've just become so chasing shortcuts, chasing that quick fix, chasing, how we can have the least amount of effort to get the most output. But that's where I feel like gratitude is that. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you, do you remember the moment when you really clicked that the Good Human Factory is the thing? The 1% idea is the thing, and you really just started to be like, I'm onto something that is not just powerful for me, but for others, and I'm doing something, I'm creating a movement.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many moments and just so many bits of feedback from people from each level that I've sort of been on my journey. Like one of the first, and I've told this story a few times, and I share it in the book, but it's a good one to share. Is my podcast had been out for about 10 or 12 episodes, very early days podcast, didn't have many listens at all. But I got a DM from a guy on Instagram going, "Hey Cooper, my name's Zach. Me and my brother love listening to your podcast." I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but then he said, "Unfortunately, my brother took his own life last week, but we just love so much the work that you're doing. And I know we probably got an extra couple of weeks out of his life because of the work that you do. Can I mention the Good Human Factory and the work you do in his eulogy?" And I was just like, this was like mid 2020. So pretty early days. I'd barely done many workshops. I was just launching, just seeing what I could do with this. And then to get that sort of a message, to have that sort of impact. And then, I became friends with this guy, Zach, and I flew him to the Gold Coast. I just launched my first ever merch drop, and I did a giveaway where anyone who bought merch went in the draw to win a trip to the Gold Coast to come hang out with me and a few of my pro athlete mates. So I was like to this guy, Zach, "Hey, you've obviously gone through such a tough time. I'd love to fly you up to the Gold Coast and spend a bit of time. We've already got a few guys coming up. You can, jump in as well." So he came up and spent a bit of time with us. I had him on the podcast. We became really good friends. But the one time that I realized the impact that had on him was I went to his wedding a couple of years later, and obviously all of his closest people are all around him. And one by one, they'd all sort of pick me out and have a chat to me and say the impact that had on Zach through his darkest time was profound. And I just felt like I was doing something nice for a guy who's going through something tough, but it just shows how those small bits of kindness can go such a long way. So that was one sort of time that I was like, wow, this is really cool. I mean, if you read the book, you'll see there's a few things that I've included in there. One, I got this email from a girl about a year after that going, "Hey, I've suffered from all these autoimmune diseases. Doctors said I was basically going to be bedridden, blah, blah, blah," all this stuff, really, really bad things that she was going through, the poor thing. And she said, "But then I listened to your I went on my sister's podcast. My sister has a really big podcast called Darling Shine." And she said, "I listened to your sister's podcast and I heard about you and you talked about inflammation and this and that. So then I got onto your podcast, and since that I've done breath work and this and that and changed my diet. And I'm so proud to say that I'm in remission from all these things I got told I'd never." And I was like, wow. And then I did a podcast with her when I was in Perth a couple of years later and got to spend some time with her. She's lovely. And that was just sort of showing wow, that's just the people who have reached out to me. There's probably so many more. And then likewise, in the workshops that I deliver, I've had so much imposter syndrome my whole time with this, going who am I to go and talk to people about mental health? I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not an expert in this field, but I do have a lot of knowledge because I've interviewed so many people. And yeah, the other thing that just makes me know that I'm onto something is the feedback that I get from my workshops.
So with all of this, with all of these tools that you've got and all of this external, with all of this feedback that you've got, do you still ever go into that space of not even so much maybe imposter syndrome, but that feeling of I haven't done enough. I've got to keep going, like that pressure. It's got to be more. I've got to do more. Like, do you feel that internal pressure?
Oh, every day. I think that's kind of what growth is, but when you start to realize that your work is impacting people, it's like you work harder, you're going to impact more people. So it's that push and pull of how do I still take care of myself and live the life that I want to live with my beautiful partner, my friends, and still, you know, live a life that I want to live, but then make sure that I'm investing strategically enough time and energy into growing the business, because growing the business means more people are impacted, more people are listening to the podcast, more people are wearing the merch that has messages that in the community people read. So it's just about this sort of constant growth, but also still trying to, realize that I need to live my own life too. But I'm very lucky. I mean, I travel around the country delivering keynotes and workshops at conferences, at schools, at workplaces, get amazing feedback pretty much every time. And yeah, life's pretty good. I'm very
So how
lucky.
do you stay on top of burnout? I mean, you can do all of the things. You can do the meditation every day. You can drink all the water, get all the sleep. But when the schedule starts to creep up and the goals and the dreams get really big as well, it can be quite easy to fall into the mouth of the monster again, even when what you're doing, what you're creating has such good intent behind it. How do you prevent that? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, burnout's an interesting one. Obviously, it's, your nervous system being shot. And as I said, and as you'll see in my book, I really try my best to maintain these healthy habits along my life. And I feel like that's me taking a bunch of steps forward. And then if, burnout creeps in, it's a few steps back. So yeah, I've had times where I feel very exhausted and stressed, but I'm very strategic with when I'm at home. I'll happily do nothing for like 2 days. And it might be, I mean, very rarely do I have a midweek day free anymore, but if on the weekend, if I'm home with my partner, I'll happily like switch our phones off, go to the beach, chill out completely with no, anything going on. But I also, as much as it is challenging for a lot of people, what I do, keynote speaking, public speaking, it's more fear than death for most people. I'm pretty
True.
confident doing it now because I've, for one, done probably 300 or 400 of them, and the feedback's always been positive. So I've got that. I don't get that fear of speaking anymore. I've got that confidence in myself. But once again, going back to my why of like, if I can impact one person each day, then I've done my job. So yeah, as well with the burnout, I'm like, I do a lot of travel. I'm on a lot of planes, but I'm generally going somewhere for an hour or 2 hours speaking. And then I'm, listening to music, working on my computer. It beats digging holes from 7 a.m. until 6
100%.
p.m. from Monday to Friday. Like I know what a hard day's work is. And what I do now
Shout out to the hole diggers because
isn't,
we need them. But yeah, it is.
and I loved it.
I find that the traveling can sometimes exhaust me. So traveling, also the energy in the rooms and the peopling. I do love it, and I love the keynote speaking. And same, I don't feel big fear, big nerves. I don't have big adrenal crashes like I used to. Now, sometimes for me, it's the peopling. Do you find the peopling? Because everybody wants a piece of you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the peopling. It's cool to like meet new people. And like I said, I've got a podcast. I've interviewed so many people. So I just find everyone fascinating. I'm like, we're all so different.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to get to know people. And generally, if I'm peopling, it's with a client who's, gone out of their way to book me. So I like to get to know why people, how they found me, what they're looking for in the workshops, what they're looking for with their business, the sort of goals that they're trying to get across and the culture that they want to create. So I mean, yeah, when you're doing like some weeks I'll, be at 4 workplaces and 4 different schools, it's just trying to like remember people's names and trying to actually connect with people, because it's like I always get lost in schools. I go to like so many different schools. I'm like, have I been here before? Where am I going? But yeah, the peopling can get thing, but I'm usually like headphones in and pretty at airports, like try and avoid the peopling as much as possible. But yeah, when I'm out and about at workshops, when I'm doing podcasts, when I'm doing all that stuff, I quite enjoy it.
Beautiful. So your book comes out when? 2 weeks?
October 1st. So not sure when this episode's going to come out,
Amazing.
but
4 weeks.
1st of
Yeah.
October, 4 weeks from when we're recording. And yeah, it's very
Yeah.
exciting. It's been a journey. I think I got approached by Wiley Publishing. I want to say like June last year. I got to check that. I've been trying to look at the initial contact email. I've been trying to find it. But anyway, and they said, do you have an idea for a book? We've been following what you've been doing for quite some time. We're obviously a company that's really focused on business books. You know, they did The Barefoot Investor, the most sold book ever in Australia. But they said they're looking to sort of add to their titles some books in the self-development space. And they said, do you have an idea? And I kind of pitched them pretty close to what the book actually turned out to be. Initially, I wanted to call it the Good Human Guidebook, but then I explained to them the 1% community, the impact it's had, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, we like the idea of calling it the 1% Good Club and really basing it around this theory of giving 1% of your day to your mental health. Kind of makes a book a little bit bigger than me. It's kind of this theory, kind of like Atomic Habits or the Resilience Project or the 5 a.m. Club, these sort of books that outgrow the author. So yeah, they're like, yep, we like the idea. We'll give you a book deal, get the book written for us in 6 months. Here's your manuscript date that we need it by, and go for it. And then I worked back and forth with my publisher, giving her some updates, and she's amazing.
You mentioned that you had never actually really imagined yourself writing a book and didn't really see yourself as an author. Did that imposter syndrome come up again? You're like, oh, can I do this? Can I write a book?
Oh, absolutely. It was so big, the imposter syndrome. I'd actually been offered by another book company about a year before, hey, do you want to write a book? And then they sort of pitched to me, it's like, it's going to cost you all this money and that, but we'll help you get it out there. And I was like, that's not what I've heard from other friends who have written books, what it's like. So I was like, you know what? I don't have the money to do that right now. I'm good where I'm at. And then Wiley, the deal was a lot different. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm keen. And then I was like, should I get a ghostwriter? And they recommended a few, and I got quoted like $100,000 off one and $40,000 off the second one. And I was like, I don't have that sort of money. Do you guys mind if I write it myself? I'll give it a crack. And they're like, yep, we don't mind if you go for it yourself, because, you know, if you want to write a second book down the line and you got a ghostwriter, then you still haven't written a book. So every author who wants to write a book has to write their first one at some stage. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go for it. And, you know, being a speaker and a podcaster, I'm quite confident in communicating. So I was just trying to find my style of writing while telling the same story, not the same, like there's a lot of the stories that I tell through my workshops are mixed throughout the book because I know they work. I
Same
know
as my book,
it's, you know, people connect with those stories. You know, they're your bread and butter that kind of get your message across. But then I got to add a lot of color, add a lot of podcast guest stories, expert opinions, and science from different studies from doing research. But I never went to uni and stuff, so trying to like reference and stuff was like such a weird and different thing for me. But we got there in the end, and had a great editing team help me sort of fact check everything, make sure everything's, you know, to the science. And yeah, it was quite the journey. I think I wrote like the first half of the book in the first 5.5 months and the second half in the last 2 weeks. It was like a high school assignment almost at the end, but no, I'm really happy and proud how it came out. I think it's got a good balance of sort of storytelling, my personal journey as an athlete, the story we spoke about at the start of this, going through this, understanding my personal values. Once again, what we've spoken on this podcast, launching the business, the sort of wins and growth of my entrepreneurial journey. But then it finishes with 10 healthy habits that are scientifically proven to be good for your nervous system, good for your mental health. And I go through my sort of journey with each of them, an expert sort of science and story behind it, and then a technique that people can integrate it into their life. So yeah, I think it's a nice book where it kind of has a balance of storytelling, but also practical advice. I feel like a lot of self-development books are really science heavy and
they miss that.
They're really bland and really hard to,
human.
you can't get to the end of them. So I was like, you know what, I want to tell some stories throughout the whole book. The book runs in chronological basically the whole way, which I think is quite nice. It's only 200 pages. It's quite short, nice size font. It's not a big heavy read. It'll take you probably 4 to 6 hours, depends how fast you read. But yeah, I think it has some value in there that people will find intriguing, inspiring, curious, and hopefully, helpful.
Now, clearly the answer to this question is going to be read the book, but to anyone who is feeling like they are stuck in a really bad place, feeling like things aren't going to get better, or that everything is just so hard right now, what advice would you offer to them, pulling on your own personal experiences?
First and foremost, don't give up hope. There's, always, I mean, it's a very cliche thing, but like light at the end of the tunnel. There's been so many people that I've interviewed on my podcast, so many people that we all know stories of who have hit rock bottom, who have been in that really dark place and come out the other side. So first of all, don't give up hope. Second of all, and this is what, we're trained to do as mental health first aiders, if you are feeling that way for a prolonged period of time, go and seek professional help. Go and speak to your GP. Tell them how you're feeling. They'll put you on a free mental health plan if they feel like it's necessary. Go see a professional and a psychologist. It can really help you. It's like, if you're not feeling that well, you go to the doctor, but then we kind of feel weird about going to the doctor about our mental health. So second bit of advice would be go and seek professional help. And then third bit, if you feel like maybe you're not at that point, but you really want to start to turn some stuff around and you want to start making some positive habits, if you have Instagram, find us at The Good Human Factory on Instagram. It's like a little yellow smiley face that says good. And send us a DM saying, I want to join the club, and you'll join that 1% club. You'll be part of a community of people who are all incredibly friendly. They support each other. They're all strangers, but after a week, you read each other's gratitudes and you'll comment on them. And, you build this beautiful community of people who are looking for the positives in each day, do the meditation in the morning. Good starting point. But yeah, my number one is just seek professional help if you really are in a dark space. Don't feel bad about it. So many people do. So it's so common. Don't feel, you have to be strong. Like we don't have to, skull drag ourselves through a challenging moment in our life. Seek professional help. We all go through those hard times.
Asking for help is the strength, right? Being able to recognize when you don't have to do it alone, and reaching out for help is really where the strength is. Trying to white knuckle it. It's just we don't have to. We do not have to.
Yeah.
Cooper, I am going to join the 1% club. I know all the tools, and I have at various times of my life been an excellent meditator and an excellent gratitude note taker daily, and I have let it fall by the wayside. So I myself am going to be joining, and I look forward to being part of something that is so damn positive out in the world, because it can be a bit of a scary jungle out there. I love that message of don't give up hope. And I think even when we've got loads of great things going on, we still need to have loads of hope for all of the things, right? That's it's such a beautiful beacon. I've loved this conversation. Thank you so much for swinging on by. Are you going to be doing book tours, like launches?
I'm not a book tour. I just found out yesterday that Dimmicks want me to come to their big George Street store. I've never been there, but supposedly it's one of the biggest bookstores in the country, 3 levels. So they've asked me to come and do a signing eventy sort of thing on the day that it comes out on the 1st. I'm actually going to be in Sydney that day, signing any Booktopia copies at their office. They've asked me to come to their head office to sign any online order pre-sales. So anyone who pre-sales on Booktopia, I'll get my my PR guy to send you the link to put in the show notes. But if you grab a Booktopia copy, you'll get it signed, which is really cool. So yeah, Dimmicks.
I actually don't think this is going to come out in the next 4 weeks.
Okay.
Can they get a signed copy via your website?
Yeah, they can. So if you go to thegoodhumanfactory.com, I'm going to have copies on there, and everything on there will be signed because I'll have them at home and I'll just sign anything before I send them.
Yes.
But yeah, obviously, if this is going to come out in October, you would have missed it. But yeah, we're at Dimmicks on the 1st, and then on the 3rd, I'm going to do like a bit of a private book launch on the Gold Coast with friends, family, media, and sort of influencers. But other than that, not much else planned from a launch point of view. As I said, it's my first time doing this, so I'm kind of trying to work out like the best ways to launch with the busy schedule that I've got. But there's potential to do some other ones, but I need to work on that still.
Well, I'll put all of your details in the show notes. We'll be able to find you in all of the places. And good luck, Chookers, with the launch. It's I'm super excited to get my hands on a copy, and it's been really great to have this conversation with you. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Danielle. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if anyone's listening and you have any questions for me, or you want to know anything more that you were burning to ask that Danielle didn't ask me in this chat, just send me a DM on Instagram at Cooper Chapman. And I always get back to everyone. I love to connect with people who have heard my story and can relate to it or have any intrigue or curiosity about it. So thank you so much for a great chat. Looking forward to the book being out there, and yeah, hopefully everyone has a great day.
Awesome. Thank you.
What I love most about Cooper's story is that it's not about walking away from something. It's really about walking towards something so much bigger. He took the pressure and the loss and the grief and he turned it into a gift for schools, for corporates, for communities, for all of us. I know I'm looking forward to being part of that 1% good club. His message is very simple, but as you've heard, it's not easy. Don't give up. Take responsibility and start small. Just 14 minutes a day. 1% of your time to sit, to breathe, to practice gratitude, and to choose kindness. That's the work. That's the difference. And before we wrap, I just want to leave you with 2 thinking points for you to take into your own life. Where are you letting external things define you? And what could shift for you if you anchored your worth in your values instead? And what is one small practice you're willing to give just 1% of your day to starting today? If you want to join the 1% Good Club or get your hands on Cooper's book, all the links are in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone that you care about, because you never know whose life might change from a conversation like this. Big thanks to Cooper for his honesty, his energy, and his heart. And of course, as always, big thanks to you for being here and doing the big stuff of life together. Until next time, don't forget to take good care of yourself and always look for that field of flowers rather than the swamp.
I hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode of Big Stuff as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. Now, if you did enjoy this episode, it would really help me if you wanted to share it with just one person that you think is going to get something out of it. And also feel free to drop a comment. All of these things really help podcasts to gain more ears, and that's what we're really here for. Also, be sure to subscribe, then you will never miss an episode. If you want to find out more about me, who I am, what I do, then you can go and check me out at daniellecolley.com.au. I'll see you next episode for more big stuff.